So again, thank you for joining us. And if Lyle, if you don't mind going to the next slide.
Mhm.
And should introduce myself. I'm Shauna Warner with Neighborhood Services, and so helping Lyle host the meeting today. And just want to make you all aware of our non-discrimination notice. Under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and related statutes, it ensures no person in Tempe shall be discriminated against on the grounds of race, color, national origin, sex, disability, or age, or be excluded from participation. So if you feel like you have, then there is contact information there for you. And again, we just ask that you fill out the self-identification survey in the chat. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lyle and he will review all the information for you. And then I should mention that because we are recording, we just ask you to remain on mute and then you'll be able to ask questions afterwards.
All right, thank you, Shauna. Hello, my name is Lyle B. Giebing. I'm a transportation planner for the city of Tempe, and welcome to the Kyrene Roosevelt Farmer Bike Ped Improvements Project public meeting. This is the second round of public meeting for this project, and just gonna go ahead and give you a quick background and then get into the details. So the project extends from University Drive south all the way down to Baseline Road. It features protected and buffered bike lanes throughout the route, two-way cycle track on Kyrene, and will include ADA directional ramps and new sidewalks where currently there are missing sidewalks in multiple parts of the route. Will include new pedestrian signals for bike and pedestrian crossings and wayfinding signage, as well as new landscape and lighting. The project will also go along the Handlebars Bike It Boulevard route, extending all the way up there to 13th Street. So the first round of public meetings were held on April 19th. Earlier this year, there were about 40 attendees and 30 online survey respondents. And through those public comments, we received a few different comments that had some major themes. And a few of those themes are listed here, such as adding more high visibility paint, more signage for vehicles to let them know about the bike route, more physical barriers where possible to physically separate the cyclist from vehicles, and to add vertical delineators as well with the physical barriers. So those were kind of some major safety themes that we heard from a lot of respondents in the last round of meetings. And then many of you also commented a specific comment for the baseline portion of the project to try and incorporate on the north side of baseline, the edge of the Western Canal path there. There's not currently a good connection or crossing where that hits baseline. So we've added a portion of the project to connect that in with our project. So I'm just gonna briefly go through kind of the sections of the project, starting from the north on University and going south. So going south from University on Farmer Ave to 13th Street, we are including lots of high visibility paint, added some more reflectors along the chicanes, and continued that with shared lane markings, as you can see in the bottom left there, down to 13th Street. And on 13th Street, due to width constraints and the current improvements, we aren't doing a lot to that street. But that will bring us over to Roosevelt from 13th to Broadway. You might know that as the Clark Park area. As you can see in the top right there, there's a large section currently that has no sidewalks, and this project will not only bring all sidewalks up to ADA standards, but add sidewalks where it's missing. You can see in the bottom left there the typical cross section for that area. It's a 5-foot buffer between the bike lane and the cars with a physical barrier, and getting rid of the middle turn lane throughout this section to allow for more of the buffer and barrier, as well as the sidewalks. We also worked with transit staff to incorporate orbit pickup and drop off locations because there will be physical barriers. We needed to plan a few different, about 5 different spots along this route, where the buffer, as you can see on the top left, that's the typical section with the buffer, and on the bottom left, that's where orbit can come over through the bike lane, pick up someone up really quick, and get back out while we are trying to keep as many of the physical barriers as possible in between. So that'll bring us south down to Broadway, and from Broadway to Alameda. Similarly, in the first quarter mile of this section, we were able to get rid of the middle turn lane and allow for a larger buffer for the physical barriers and a larger bike lane. As it gets farther south towards the industrial area and warehouses, the middle turn lane will continue, but we'll also continue the buffer and physical barriers throughout this section where possible, given the driveways and width constraints, and also upgrade any areas of the sidewalk that currently are up to ADA standards. The bottom left photo there is where Alameda meets Roosevelt Street, and it's a good example of kind of the high visibility paint bike lanes with buffer that we will have on Roosevelt, and just imagine some the physical barriers going through that buffer as well. That connection at Alameda there will connect over to the future pedestrian bridge across the 101, and that'll be a good connection going to the west. And continuing down to Southern, the top left photo shows another section where there's currently no sidewalk, so this project will add a large ADA sidewalk there, and as well as continue the buffers and physical barriers throughout, going down Roosevelt all the way to Southern. And then from Southern, going south on Roosevelt to the Dwight Park area, will include shared lane markings through this neighborhood street, and that brings us down to Dwight Park. And incorporating the public feedback from the first round of meetings, we are exploring 2 different alternatives for this section. So you can see alternative 1 there on the top is a proposed 10-foot multi-use path that will go through Dwight Park, and we've planned it to take out the decomposed granite area and not touch as much of the grass as possible, as well as not taking out any of the current mature trees. This option would also add multiple trees to the area. Alternative 2 at the bottom, that's the blue line. It would go continue the shared lane markings along La Jolla Drive and then south on Wilson to make the connection to Manhattan. And here's a better look at those options. Here's an example of the multi-use path through the park. As you can see, those brighter green trees are planned new trees, a minimum of 10, and as well as some new lighting to keep this path lit. And the second alternative that we're exploring would be just to continue those shared use lane markings, as I said, on La Jolla Drive and Wilson Street. And that'll bring us to Manhattan, which has also the shared lane use markings going east to Kyrene. which is one of the coolest parts of the project. It'll include a two-way cycle track on Kyrene, where there's currently plenty of room. There's also no sidewalk on the east side there, so it will be constructing a brand new sidewalk and include a full 5-foot buffer with the raised channelization device, the physical barrier, as well as large 6-foot bike lanes in each direction on that east side. We'll also include a full pedestrian signalized crossing to get users over from Manhattan to the east side of Kyrene. And continuing down to Baseline Road, this is a new addition to the project based on the first round of public comments. The top left of this map shows the Western Canal on the north side of Baseline, where currently there's no signalized crossing, and it requires users to go a quarter mile in the opposite direction if they want to cross Baseline. And users who had been going to the east, as shown here before, had comments about being hit or almost hit by cars coming out of that driveway, the mobile home park. So there's a new stop sign with high visibility crosswalk and stop bar proposed, as well as a 10-foot multi-use path on that north side of Baseline Road that will continue to the east and tie into our project, which will bring users over to, on the far right of that map, the full signalized crossing to cross Baseline Road safely into Kiwanis Park and continue down on the Western Canal path. So here's a better look at that signalized crossing on Baseline in that bottom view. And the top right photo is where the project would end, tying directly into the multi-use path there at Kiwanis Park and continuing south on the Western Canal multi-use path. So for the next steps, today we're holding 2 public meetings, one in person later this evening. And for proposed schedule, the 100% designs will anticipated to be completed September 2024. And the notice to proceed for construction anticipated April 2025, and anticipate to complete construction in the spring of 2026. Thank you for attending. You can find the project survey at the link below, as well as using this QR code. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask now, as well as forward any questions along to my email below. Thank you.
Okay, so any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we're happy to call on you. And then Lyle, can you go back to the timeline?
Mm-hmm.
So did anyone have any questions about the paths, or here we go, there's a hand. Bruce, yeah, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Sure. So several years ago, I attended a meeting on this path, but it was along the railroad right away, but that seems to have not worked out. Could you explain what happened there?
Hey, Bruce. Yeah. So that was a multi-year issue where the city and staff were working to try and figure out a path forward with the Union Pacific Railroad to continue that path straight south on the railroad spur. However, they're not able to come to any final deal or conclusion with that due to multiple right-of-way, utility, and cost constraints. So a couple years ago, staff had proposed a new route, and council approved this new route that jogs over to Roosevelt and then continues back down Kyrene.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, our next question says, this is the first time he's looking into the project and he wanted to know what was the catalyst or event that sparked this project. So why this project? Wow.
Yeah, so the Bike It Boulevard routes through Tempe are low stress bike boulevard areas that allow users to travel north south throughout the city without being on the major thoroughfares, less traffic, and safer for both bikes and pedestrians. So this was just a kind of missing link and a very unique opportunity to link directly from downtown ASU Mill Avenue area with a bike lane and pedestrian new upgraded ADA pedestrian walkways all the way down to the current Western Canal path at Kiwanis Park. So it was just a great opportunity to link a lot of really big areas in the city and bring a few of these current improvements together into one.
And then, so the question asked, is it possible to redirect off of Manhattan Drive?
Yeah, sorry, does that mean not continue the bike route on Manhattan and continue it somewhere else? Is that the question?
Rick,
Yes.
yes. Rick, yeah, if you want to expand on that.
This was the planned route that was proposed and approved by council when the first rail spur route was not able to be completed and not able to move forward on that. So this was the route that was chosen.
And then the question was asked if the project was federally funded.
Yes, there's federal funding included for a large portion of the project and construction, as well as some city funds. But yeah.
Okay, any other questions? So the question is there, so continuing on that, moving off Manhattan, asking about Southern to Roosevelt.
Sorry, what's the question specifically?
So and Rick, I don't know if you want to come off mute and just kind of ask, but when he was asking about redirecting off of Manhattan, he was asking, I think, a follow-up about Southern to Roosevelt. Or are you asking more, Rick, just what that looks like?
How the fuck do I come off mute?
Yeah, we can hear you if you want to.
There you go.
You got me? Why are you funneling it through a residential street, not going up to Southern and doing the improvements there to Roosevelt? You're funneling everything through a residential area.
Correct. The one of the major issues with the Union Pacific Railroad was that specific corridor right where Southern and Kyrene meet, with all the railroad infrastructure there. There wasn't really a way to move forward with UPRR to make that a feasible option. So that was the reason why it was continued down Roosevelt, south of Southern, onto that collector street.
No, why is it being funneled through Manhattan versus Southern?
Right. Because if it had jogged over at Southern and then down Kyrene, it would not be possible to construct the improvements there at that Southern and Kyrene intersection due to the right-of-way and Union Pacific Railroad costs and fees. And the city had worked for a couple years trying to work that out, and it just was not feasible.
So you think it's feasible to run it down a residential street versus something else? I mean, you have a plethora of other directionals, and you funnel them down a residential avenue.
Yeah, the original project did look at not only Southern but the rail spur just north of Southern, and there were multiple options considered. And a couple years ago, this was the option that was finally approved on by council and then Maricopa Association of Governments to continue forward since the project was at a standstill.
Well, I mean, that makes no sense to me, but why don't you continue it down Kyrene to the backside of the industrial between Southern Avenue and Alameda? I mean, I don't understand why you're forcing
That
people to drive down to route this through a residential area when you have an unbelievable amount of other options. And I know you 2 years ago, city council did this, but this is the first time we've been hearing about it. And I speak for everyone on Manhattan. They're not happy.
Yeah, that area was looked at extensively between Southern and Alameda as well.
Okay. So
And
then we're going to run it down Manhattan.
yeah,
Well, are you okay if I jump in
I
here?
love what you,
yeah,
I love
yeah.
what you did to the park. You upgraded our park and you set that buffer for the bike path without acknowledging it.
Yeah, Chase, did you have a comment there?
Yeah, I just want to jump in. This is Chase Wallman over in transportation planning as well for the city. This route was also considered due to it connecting to Dwight Park and Clark Park. So with all of our bike boulevard projects, we want to identify lower traffic volume streets that would be more comfortable as a bike facility rather than Kyrene or some of our other arterials. So that is additional reason why this route specifically was chosen. So we're trying to connect residents to different destinations and parks throughout the city. And then as far as the Dwight Park path, what we're proposing after getting additional feedback from the neighborhood is to utilize that decomposed granite area that I think you mentioned. There was a buffer
You
space.
put it in less than a month ago. So yeah, I mean, I noticed that you buffered that out for that bike trail.
Yes,
You also planted brand new trees at an expense to our taxpayers that you're going to have to pull out.
Yeah, so with any of our alternatives, we are protecting all the existing trees in place.
Okay, then I have a question about that. Why couldn't you come down Santa Rita, which would be the Santa Cruz, which would be the other tip of Dwight Park, and then bring it across?
So I'm not sure if we have that street identified here. This was with all of our projects, we want to provide the most direct route to the other side of the bike boulevard.
At the expense of the homeowners.
And this is exactly the feedback that we want to hear. So this is something that we haven't heard during our first round of public meetings in April. So that's why we still show this alignment as we do, and that's why we're presenting multiple alternatives through this Dwight Park area, because we have heard feedback after we advertised the public meeting.
But it seems like no matter what is said, you're dead set on using Manhattan as the buffer to Roosevelt. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the alignment that we're proposing. And that, again, that's to provide for the most direct connection so that we're not having the bicyclists or pedestrians having.
The most direct would be going all the way down to Southern where you already have crossing and bringing it across.
Yeah, and again, that would be along the arterial roads, which we're trying to avoid, as well as the conflicts with Union Pacific Railroad.
But what about the conflict with the taxpayers of Tempe?
Yeah, and that's, and again, we hadn't heard that feedback in our first round of public meetings, so that's
Well, I'm
why.
hearing it all up and down my block now, now that this has been proposed, and it's not positive. So we will be
Yeah.
coming to the meetings. And is there any way, and don't tell me no, think about it before you answer, that you can divert this off of Manhattan Drive?
Yeah, I would love to talk to you more at our meeting, as well as any of the residents as well in the neighborhood, so that we could discuss alternative alignments. Something that we would have to look at further, and I would want to make sure that that feedback's also shared by the rest of the neighborhood as well.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And Rick, we did put the survey form in the link as well. So we'd also encourage you to share those concerns and encourage your neighbors to as well. And that is open for 2 weeks, so you do have time to review it. And again, we'll post the recording here online for those that couldn't join us today, as well as the evening meeting that Lyle has on the screen there.
I can't attend tonight, but I guarantee you I'm going to have some people there.
No, we appreciate anyone coming out to share any
Well, I
concerns.
appreciate your time, and I know you. I know for a fact that this is already set in stone that you're going to come down Manhattan Drive. The people that have moved here and live here did not sign up for this. I can guarantee you that. And we're talking about 2 blocks. And you're going to divert all this traffic down a quiet street.
No, and as Chase mentioned, if they want to come out and talk, then, they can look at a map, and sometimes that's easier to kind of sketch through some of what might be there. So we'll move forward to the next question, which Lyle, you may have already answered, but the question was asking if there will be any improvements to the Southern and Kyrene intersection.
Yeah, so that was looked at to at least continue part of the bike and pedestrian route to Southern up there. However, it doesn't appear like after the 30% plans were submitted from the consultant that would be feasible given costs and timeline working with UPRR, which were the original issues that blocked us from using that intersection in the past.
Okay, and then the next question is asking, what is a handlebars route, and is it marked on the street? So maybe a little more about the bike boulevards and maybe what some of that signage looks like.
Yeah, so as Chase had mentioned, the bike boulevards, bike it routes are throughout the city of Tempe, and will have wayfinding signage included with this project. That top left handlebars photo on the map is an example of that wayfinding signage, and they're on multiple routes throughout the city, and this one is labeled as the handlebars route that will allow users to just travel a direct north-south route and not be on a large 40+ mile an hour street with multiple lanes of cars. Low volume and low stress route for bikes and pedestrians. So that's what the bike boulevards are for in our city.
And then they're each named after different parts of a bike, so you kind of know where they're going. So the handlebars, for example, would be this north-south. And some of the others, we can put the link in the chat to where you can find some of the other bike boulevards. And then they are just, right, Lyle, the small sign like you have on the picture there. I don't know if you know the dimensions, Chase. I don't think they're very.
Yeah, they're 12 by 12 inches or 12 by 18, depending on the situation.
So the next question was asking if there's any data available about pedestrian or bicyclist collisions that have occurred on this route, and if there are any estimated numbers on how this would improve safety.
Yeah, I don't have that on hand, but there certainly is. There are counts available through the city. We can follow up on that one if you leave your information in the chat. For the second part of that, certainly the buffered and especially physical barrier bike lanes have proven everywhere that they've been installed. They certainly help with safety for cyclists and allow more users to feel safe using the bike infrastructure in our city.
Okay, and then the next question asks how the bike lanes will be cleaned. The streets are cleaned currently by a sweeper. Will the sweeper also be able to clean the bike lanes?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The city is working concurrently in order to begin installing more protected physical buffered bike lanes throughout the city. We are in talks to get a smaller sweeper that would specifically be able to handle these areas.
Okay, and then the next question, I'm glad to see a two-way cycle track. What type of protection will it have? Buffer space, tough curbs, candlesticks, planters, etc.
Yeah, so that one, the on Kyrene there, it should be yep, here's the cross section there. It's a 5-foot buffer with the physical barriers, as well as the 6-foot lane for each bikeway in each direction. And as far as the candlestick or vertical delineators, the city is working on incorporating those in the 60% plans for this project. We're looking at some other areas of the city as kind of a pilot project for those, and then hoping to incorporate some of those in this project as well.
Okay, thank you. And for those putting comments in the chat that aren't questions, just so you know, we will be saving those as well, and those will be included in the summary we do of the input received. And I'll just read those quickly to be included in the recording. The first one is Southern is not comfortable for many types of riders, and a lot of taxpayers are in favor of this project. And then the next one is seems like a lot of work when we've already got a pretty good route down Hardy all the way to the Western Canal. So we do still have time if anyone had any other questions of our transportation team. Otherwise, the survey link is in the chat, and that is going to be open for 2 weeks. And you'll also see online today's presentation. So if there's more information or if you want to zoom in on any of the images, those will be there as well. And that is already posted online. Okay, Lyle, question was asked if it will affect where they put their recycling bins, if it's on street.
Yeah, I believe it will not. The street is wide enough to incorporate all users there and not affect the current flow.
And then another comment that Hardy and Kyrene are both great, and the more parallel routes, the better for everyone's access. And then anything else you wanted to share, Lyle, or wrap us up?
Nope. Just we're really excited to include some great features in this project, like that two-way cycle track would be the first in the city of Tempe. So it's a very exciting project, and we hope to move forward and work with you all to make it happen.
All right, thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.